At the beginning of the film, we see Larisa and her husband. There was a lot of love between them. After many years of marriage, they planned their anniversary. They were going to go on a world tour. The lady was very excited. She really enjoyed her husband's company. Nahiri Saka's husband also loved her very much. They boarded the flight, and here we learn about Larisa's peculiar habit. Larisa had a phobia of fastening seatbelts. She couldn't wear a belt in a car or plane. Even today, she didn't fasten her belt, and they began to enjoy the journey with his shoulder. Initially, the plane flew very smoothly. The journey was perfectly fine. The weather was also good, but they didn't know that amidst so many good things, something bad could also happen. During the journey, suddenly the plane shook violently, and everyone woke up from their sleep. When she looked outside, she saw that a jet plane was about to collide with theirs. So, before Larisa could think of anything, another plane collided with theirs, dividing it into two parts. Along with that plane, their plane's engine was also destroyed. The aircraft commenced sustaining significant damage, and the internal pressure was rapidly failing. The flight attendant on board was also hurled into the air, and as Larisa had not secured her seatbelt, she was similarly propelled away by the intense air pressure. Despite flailing her arms and legs desperately, she struggled to stabilize herself, but to no avail. With considerable effort, she managed to grasp hold of a seat in the fractured plane. At this moment, the lady was exceedingly terrified. Somehow, she was endeavoring to reach her husband. He was approaching. However, quite unexpectedly, there was a thunderous explosion at the rear section of the aircraft, resulting in that portion plummeting to the ground. Despite the back section descending, the front section, where Larisa was situated at that moment, remained swiftly airborne. Larisa was not worried about anything else. She was solely focused on moving ahead. In her quest to reach her husband, everyone present felt as though their demise was imminent. Suddenly, a reverse air pressure occurred, and Larisa was thrust forward. Why had she moved forward earlier? He endeavored to grasp her firmly in an attempt to rescue her, but the air pressure was exceedingly intense, and Larisa's husband could only maintain his grip on her hand for a brief few seconds. Ultimately, their hands slipped apart, and the airborne plane plummeted downwards. The section where Larisa's husband was situated remained entirely below, whereas the portion with Larisa continued to be airborne and was rapidly descending. Anyone in such a dire situation would likely only contemplate their imminent demise, yet Larisa's thoughts were solely focused on her husband. She had to save her life and meet her husband too. With great difficulty, she somehow managed to sit in her seat and fastened her seatbelt. What happened after that? She was not conscious. The scene cut off. After a while, we were shown a scene where Larisa's chair was lying in the middle of the jungle. The plane had crashed badly. Many parts of the plane were not near her. Once she fully regained consciousness, she began to remember that she had been in a very big crash. As this memory came back to her, she also felt in her arm. She felt it deeply. Looking down, her leg was in a bad way. A metal rod had pierced her leg, and it was indeed a very creepy scene. Her condition was so dire that it was unbearable to watch. Even Risa knew she couldn't walk in that state. With great courage, she grabbed the rod with both hands and pulled it out of her leg. By this time, she was in excruciating pain. Her screams echoed throughout the forest. Once the rod was out, blood started flowing rapidly. To stop the bleeding, she tore her skirt and made a bandage. However, even such a small bandage was not enough initially. She couldn't control herself. To save herself, she had to get up and move forward. She tried to stop, but she was in so much pain that she couldn't get up. She hoped that by this time, some people would have come here to help. So, she started calling out for help, but unfortunately, no one had arrived yet. Gathering her courage, she got up herself and saw a shadow behind her. She went closer and saw a girl, which gave her hope. But as soon as she touched the girl, she realized she was dead. Knowing this, her entire courage began to falter. In a state of sorrow and fear, Lahiri Sahib fainted. Now we must show the Russian journal, who have already received news of 2 plane crashes and have initiated a rescue operation. People are gathering to conduct a swift rescue in the jungle. But no one has reached Larisa yet. We saw Larisa here, who regained consciousness due to a mosquito bite. As soon as she regained consciousness, she heard the sound of a helicopter and realized that the rescue team had arrived for the operation. In the hope of ensuring her survival, she resolved to move forward and took a scarf from a large corpse to bandage herself before proceeding. Fortunately, she reached a clearing in the dense jungle where the helicopter crew might potentially see her. She attempted to signal the helicopter by waving the scarf, but regrettably, the pilots did not notice her. She did not give up and continued to walk in the direction of the helicopter. Walking in this manner was so incredibly difficult for her that it was unimaginable. He was in a terrible state due to weakness. As he walked along the path, he stumbled upon a pin. Even a pin seemed like a treasure to him, and the reason for this would soon become clear. He took the badge off the tally and straightened its pin. After rubbing the pin vigorously, he placed it on a leaf. This pin and leaf worked exactly like a compass. This trick was taught to him by his husband when they went on a campaign, and today, this very trick was saving his life. The direction indicated by this leaf eventually led him to a river. There was clean drinking water available. Water was essential for survival. She first drank the water to quench her thirst, washed her face, and then filled a plastic bag with a lot of water. After filling the water, she went back to the place where her plane had crashed, where her seat was. There, she took a coat from a deceased woman because it was extremely cold, and then she picked up a stick and tied her water bag to it. Using the stick for support, she began to move forward, facing numerous dangers along the way. She had read thoroughly. There were many perils along the way, requiring her to be very vigilant. After hours of tough journey, facing all the dangers, she finally reached the vast field beyond the forest, yet she didn't know. This was even more dangerous than the forest because it was a place of deep heartache that had drawn the foreigner Larisa into its depths. Teresa began to struggle fiercely. Trying to escape, she even grabbed at the ground, but the earth here was also soft and unstable. Before the marshes could completely swallow her, Larisa, using all her remaining strength, she moved towards it and grabbed the branch. Was it at least strong enough? It managed to bear Ladisa's weight, and with its support, Ladisa managed to get out. At this moment, all her strength was exhausted. She didn't realize it. As soon as she got out, she fell asleep. Hours later, when she regained consciousness, she saw that the place was very dangerous. She immediately got up and moved forward to save her life. She had now taken the uphill mountainous path. She hoped that upon reaching the top, she would surely find someone, despite the wounds on her feet. Despite the intense pain, she persevered in her ascent upwards, but her misfortune struck as she reached the summit. Her pounding heart stood there, and she tumbled back down. At this moment, all her hopes were at the least shattered. She could have chosen to remain there without rising, but then memories of the beautiful love she shared with her beloved husband came flooding back to mind. She had never imagined that this honeymoon journey would become so dreadful that her husband would be separated from her during the trip. This thought prompted her to resolve to search for her husband, and this decision bestowed upon her such courage. Not only did she rise to her feet, but she also succeeded in ascending the hill and reaching its summit. There was a glimmer of light and the semblance of tranquility there. She considered that she might rest for several days, but perhaps that wasn't destined for her because before her stood a ravenous predator in search of its prey. Gideo top attained the stakes executed slip by unnoticed, but regrettably the tiger detected her presence before she could. As soon as it became aware of its prey, the lioness began chasing Ladisa, and to escape, Ladisa had to run quickly too. Her leg was hurt. She couldn't run fast, while the lioness was at full speed. In this situation, as soon as the gap between Lahari and her diminished, Lahsa sensed her existence was nearing its conclusion, but destiny had alternative intentions. In front was a trench. Tripping, Larisa stumbled into the trench on the pass. The lioness abandoned her there just like that. As soon as the danger was mitigated, she clambered out of the trench and commenced ascending the opposite side. It was a towering mountain. Upon reaching its summit, her elation was boundless, for on the opposite side of the mountain peak, she could discern the section of the plain where her spouse was located. In her excitement to meet them, she didn't think twice and started descending the hill rapidly. She stepped into the cold river water and proceeded forward. However, crossing the river was not as easy as she had anticipated. As the river deepened, the current swept her away, and the icy water chilled her to the bone. With courage, she managed to grab hold of a rock in the river to save herself from the current, but moving forward in her discomfort was now difficult for her, pausing as she went. Holding on to things, she reached the edge where the plane's wreckage was. She was hoping to see her husband there, but instead, there was a dangerous scene. She saw a body that was almost decomposed, as it had been 3 days since the accident. It was the pilot's body. Near the pilot's leg, she found an emergency kit. It contained a flare gun with 2 bullets. To save her life, she mustered the courage to fire 1 bullet, but unfortunately, there was no one around to see it. She decided to fire the second bullet from a height where someone might see it. As she continued on her journey, her foot struck something. It was a bag, one of her husband's bags, in which he had made numerous sketches for her. Seeing this gave her hope, and she realized that her husband was nearby. At first, she looked at these pictures, and then, leaving everything else behind, she began to search for her husband. Finally, she found him. He was still sitting in a plane chair. As soon as she embraced him, tears welled up in Larissa's eyes. They were experiencing a sense of relief, something they hadn't felt for the past 3 days. Swiftly, she retrieved her wedding ring from her bag and gently placed it on his finger. Both of them relaxed and drifted into sleep. A short while later, when Larisa opened her eyes, she realized that everything she had witnessed was merely a dream, and the body of her husband was, in reality, a lifeless body. Upon this realization, she screamed so loudly that the entire forest echoed with her cries. Her cries and wails went unheard by anyone. Meanwhile, we observed that a helicopter was also. The helicopter began to descend, with Larisa nearby. She could now hear the sound of the helicopter. Summoning her courage, she started climbing up the hill so she could fire a flare gun. Upon reaching the top, she managed to fire the flare gun with all her strength, but then she collapsed. She hadn't eaten for 3 days, and her condition had worsened considerably. Fortunately, the rescue officer saw her signal and came to rescue her. Her condition was extremely poor. So far, these people had only found one. They discovered the only survivor of the tragic accident. The rescue officer swiftly removed his jacket and carefully placed it on Larisa, ensuring she was rescued. Ultimately, it was revealed that this incident was indeed genuine. In the year 1981, during 2 separate plane crash incidents, just a single woman survived, and it is her story that we have just observed.